Today's demo is going to cover the visualizer using the Case Close software. And today we're going to actually analyze some credit card transactions, a file in Excel that came to me, and I imported already into the database for sake of time. But you can use this visualizer to analyze any set of data, whether it's credit card transactions, all the cases from Case Close and how they're related to incidents and people and vehicles and addresses, to phone logs. You want to phone call logs. You want to analyze who's calling who and over a large network, whether it's a shoplifting ring. You want to build the ring and see how the network is formed. So any of that data you can analyze with the visualizer. I'm going to give you a high-level overview today. You can certainly find more information, and we can do a more in-depth demo if you contact caseclosesoftware.com, and then we can do a full demo. But this is going to be a high-level overview. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my dataset builder, and I'm just going to select everything for now. I'm just going to next through all this, but you can filter it and really narrow down what you want to analyze. But for this demo, I'm going to analyze everything. This is my whole network of this credit card transaction file that I imported. Okay, and if we zoom in, I'm going to quickly go over here. Let's zoom in on a couple of these things. So this is Thomas, and obviously he's a big player. He's got all these transactions, and this is a store that he's done transactions to. These are the actual transactions, and he goes in on the sales floor on this one, makes a purchase. He makes returns. You can see he makes a return on this transaction to this store. So anyway, that's the obviously it's a big network, so that's the big network here altogether. But we're going to analyze this a little bit more closely and kind of make connections between people and stores. Down here at the bottom, let's go. I'm going to click on the calculate, and this is going to calculate. Visualize will calculate all the relationships between the entities, the degree of relation, how close they are to each other, how involved they are. So I just did a calculate, and it tells me obviously Thomas is a big one. He's got 124 degrees of connectivity. Jimmy is got 12, and Marcus got 32, and so on. So it will calculate that for you. So for example, once you calculate it, I come over here to the visualizer, and if I want to click on the degree and highlight them in degrees, based on the numbers it calculates, the highest person or entity with a degree will be in red, and then the lowest will be in yellow. So you look back over here, and you see Thomas is in red, and then these are some other yellow ones, and maybe a light orange here. So let's zoom in and see what that's telling us. So if I zoom in on this person right here, that's Brian. He's a little less important in this network than Thomas, because Thomas is obviously brighter red. And then down here are the store numbers, and also Scott. So we can move Scott over here too. You can move these around. So there's Scott. He's a little less important as far as his degree of closeness, because that's why he's a different color, but he's still important to this network. Okay. So let's go back to fit to the page. A couple layout options you have is this is incremental. You can do go to a circular layout. You can go to a hierarchical layout, which is kind of neat in this example, because you can highlight Thomas, and as you scroll through, you can see Thomas has made all these transactions, and then to all these stores, and so the stores at the bottom. So it gives you a different view on looking at your data. Okay, and you can use this to scroll over, and then there's some other people there. There's Mark, okay, for example. All right. So, and there's Scott. So let's go back to the incremental layout. And one thing you can do is you can declutter this. If there's too much information here that you want to narrow down, you can actually pick what entities you want to look at. Maybe the entity is just the store number or the store location, and the people. Maybe you only want to look at that, not so much the transactions themselves. And so you can limit that. You can eliminate certain relationships if you don't want to see certain relationships. If you only want to see the purchase as opposed to making a return, so you can hide the returns and only look at where they purchased with a credit card transaction. So there's a lot you can do there. You can also limit the value, and I only want to see degrees greater than 15. Okay, and it'll highlight, and the only ones that have degrees greater than 15 is Thomas and Brian. Okay, so you can there's several ways you can narrow down and unclutter, so to speak, your data set. The visualizer tab, let's narrow down, let's zoom in a little bit on this. So let's pick two entities. I've got let's pick Mark and let's pick Scott. Okay, so I highlight them both, and I can come over here to the visualize, and I can say show me all paths that how they're connected. Well, this is a pretty good sized network, so they're connected. You can draw connections between Scott and Mark through any of these that are highlighted in red. You can also say just show me the shortest path, and the shortest path is from Scott to Mark would be, you follow the red line to this, let's zoom in a little bit more, to this transaction right here. Okay, they're both related to this transaction. All right, so let's just highlight them again, and then I'll do the shortest path, and it'll show you right here they're both related to this transaction. That is the shortest path to get from Scott to Mark, or how they're connected, is through this one transaction. Okay, so you can the other thing I want to do is show you the option with clicks. The system will automatically calculate what it considers clicks based on their number of connections and their degrees. And this is going to take a second, but it came back with a bunch of clicks here. And this is a Thomas click, so if I click on that, you can see in red, I'll kind of zoom in a little bit. You can see in red what it considers a click, okay? And then this is a second click that is discovered, and with this store, with these people and these transactions, let's just scroll down. Here's a Brian click, so it found, and I'm probably going to have to just stay to the full page here. In red, it found that Brian, this is a click for Brian. Click number 65. Here's a different click with some other people or transactions or stores. So it identifies, based on these calculations, what is considered to be a click, and then you can narrow down and focus in, and maybe there are more of an organized organization doing these credit card transactions, or this phone records if you're analyzing phone calls. So identifying these clicks would be extremely difficult and time consuming, if not impossible, using just a text Excel kind of format and trying to remember the connections between entities. Okay, the next thing I want to do is highlight two people, and we'll turn off all this all these clicks, and we'll turn off the let's pick Jimmy, and let's pick another person here. Let's pick Scott. I'm going to highlight them both. I'm going to export them out to a separate window because I just want to look at those two people, Jimmy and Scott. And so I'll click on Jimmy here and expand his network. These are the stores that he's had transactions to. These are the transactions. And then this is Scott. Let's expand him. And you can see how Scott is connected to Jimmy through this store and this store. So either they've done credit cards both at these same stores, or make returns, whatever the scenario is. You can, with these two, now I'm just analyzing Jimmy and Scott, I can expand on any of these stores, for example, or transactions. So this is Jimmy, he's done a transaction to this store. If I can expand that store, and now I can see that that store also Mark is related to two relationships. Thomas makes returns also to that store, and Brian has also two relationships. And of course I can expand Brian and all those, and I can really go beyond back to our first window where it opens up the whole network. But I'm not going to do that for this this part of the demo. So I've got a bunch of store locations here, and I see how these two people are related to each other, and they are related to this transaction, by the way. I mentioned two stores, but there's also transaction that relates these two people to each other. Okay, I can run this out to Google Earth, and it will map out those store locations. We'll give it a second to load here. And so you can see the transactions across a period of time. You can zoom in even further, and you can move this around. So if you're familiar with Google Earth, here's several transactions for Scott, and of course there's a store location. You can zoom in even more. Okay, so follow the store location here. You can also do a timeline. So let's zoom out a little bit, and you can see their store number 1197. You can timeline this out, and you can see how the transactions occurred over a period of time. And I've kind of went down. So as I move this slider, it builds the time relationship. And of course, if I had more data, more stores, you really see how it forms. Okay, from the map standpoint. And I'm going to show you the timeline here in a moment in the visualizer as well. Okay. The one other thing you could do is you could send this out to a 3D view, and it kind of gives you a 3D option to look at it. You can also let it play itself, and you can turn off some axes if you don't want to see all the axes, but you can also see how they're linked this way as well. Okay. All right, one other thing I want to show you is, let's go back to the full of in this window. I'm just looking at two people, Jimmy and Scott, and building relationships. Let's go back to the full data set, and let's go back to the full network, which is quite large. The other cool thing is the time range feature, which allows you to set a period of time, and let's just pick this. I got 820 to 9/8, so we're talking about 18 days time period. And then if I enable the timeline, what it does is, if you watch this network grow over a period of time, I can move this slider, and you see how the relationships are formed over, in this case, like an 18-day period of time. So this is 6/1 to 6/20. For 20 days, as I move, you can see how the network grows and is formed over this period of time. Now, of course, some people drop out of the network, and that's what you'll see there, transactions. But this is how it'll grow. You can see visually the growth of the organization until we are where we're at today. Okay, so that's a real nice feature to see how the network grew visually over a period of time. Okay, so we can turn that off. So that's a quick overview. There's a lot more that the visualizer does to help you analyze crime, phone records, credit card transactions, or any other data set. You can pull the data from the case closed software, analyze connections between people and cases and incidents, and how they're all related, whether it's organized crime, RICO investigations, whatever you're investigating. This tool will help you tremendously make sense of the large amounts of data that you probably already have through some types of data dumps and into probably an Excel file or some other comma separated file. We can analyze it and help you, point you to a direction to further your investigation. For more information, call caseclosedsoftware.com. You can visit us on the web, caseclosedsoftware.com, and all our contact information is there.